Today I'm showing you 35 amazing coastal and summer home decor DIYs on a budget. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is make a runner out of our greenery. Now the benefit of living in Florida is that you have beautiful greenery all year long. I just got this from my yard. I have a palm tree and I have a beautiful magnolia tree. So I just did a little trimming and I got some great greenery for my runner. I'm placing the leaves on top of each other and I'm staggering a bit so they look a little more natural and organic. And I'm leaving some gaps in my table so that I can put my hurricane candles and little votive vases. I'm placing my hurricane candle holders symmetrically in the center of my runner and interspersing my magnolia flowers between. The variation in height and size gives extra interest to my table, and the candlelight will provide a beautiful warmth and glow, especially while dining in the evening. We're going to start off with these placemats. I got them at Home Goods and they kind of remind me of coral. They'll be perfect. And then I also have these chargers. They're from the Dollar Tree and they have a nice wood grain, and so it'll bring in a little bit more of that coastal feel. The lightly weaved gold foil placemats are the perfect backdrop for the heavier feel of the wood grain chargers. I'm going to use a white plain ceramic plate. On top of this plate, I'm going to place a turquoise napkin. I got these at JCPenney, and napkins are a great way to introduce color because you can have some vivid pops of color, but it doesn't overwhelm your tablescape. So I'm going to place this on top of my plate, and then on top of my napkin, I'm going to put this shell salad plate, which again helps to reinforce our coastal feel. I folded my napkin in thirds and centered it on my plate. I wanted the turquoise color to be a statement color in my design, so having a wide stripe of this beachy color is perfect for my tablescape. This terrarium is a Pottery Barn inspired terrarium. If you were to buy this from the Pottery Barn, it would cost you $34.50. And I'm going to show you how to get the look for less for $3.18. Terrariums can be expensive, so I was excited when I saw this plastic terrarium on the Dollar Tree website. The only caveat is that you have to buy them in bulk. It's a case of 24. They just ship it straight to your local Dollar Tree and you just pick it up there. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description box below. These are the perfect size for my table setting, and I prefer them being plastic because I know if they're dropped they won't shatter, which is key when you've got little ones. And at $1 a piece, they're a steal. The sand, the shells, and this artificial greenery is all from Michael's, and I used my 40% off coupon, so I got some good deals. We're going to start off by putting the sand in our terrarium first, and then we'll add the rest. I used a large measuring spoon to scoop in about a cup of sand, and then I smoothed it out into an even surface. The only difference between my terrarium and the Pottery Barn terrarium is that theirs has an air plant in it. I'm using artificial because if you know anything about me, you know that I am no gardener, so I'm not taking any chances. I got this greenery at Michael's for 40% off, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip off the ends, and then I'm going to stick it inside my terrarium and the sand will hold it in place. A few alternatives that you could use instead of these grassy stems could be a succulent, a small cactus, or some bright summer flowers. After you have it to the size that you want, I'm just taking this moss. I already have this moss, so this isn't going to cost me anything. I'm going to place a little bit down first inside, and then I'll stick my little plants right inside of the moss. I was pleasantly surprised at how well the sand held the greenery in place. The key is making sure that there is enough sand in your terrarium. The sand alone will support and hold up your greenery without the addition of floral foam. I got a bag of shells at Michael's for $5.49, and there were enough shells in it that I could spread it out equally amongst my 4 terrariums. These shells were a perfect match to my inspiration piece shells. I simply spaced them evenly around my greenery to provide that beachy nautical feel and finishing touch. Here's the Pottery Barn Inspiration Terrarium, priced at $34.50 a piece. And here's my look for less terrarium at a grand total of $3.18 a piece. An almost identical piece of decor for over $31 less. On top of my terrarium, I'm going to add a fun beach-themed quote, along with some coordinating turquoise ribbon. You could just leave it plain, but I like adding a little extra. You could put the menu on there, you could put place cards, or you could put your favorite beach that you've traveled. And this is a perfect favor for your guests to take home. I know that I would love to take this home, and for $3.18, it's the perfect price. I printed off one of my favorite summer sayings and punched out a hole in my paper so I could thread my color-coordinated ribbon through. You could also use a nautical rope, twine, or a multicolored ribbon, whatever fits in best with your color scheme. It's time for summer outdoor entertaining, so let's wow our guests with a memorable coastal and beach-inspired dining experience. From bright tropical greenery to an individual terrarium, your summer table setting will be dressed to impress. I'm going to start off with 2 containers. You're going to need 2 different sizes. The first one needs to be glass. That way, when you put the lemons inside, you'll be able to see through the glass and see the lemon slices. And then your second container needs to be able to fit inside of your larger container and still have a gap in between. Now I have about a 1/2 inch gap between my large container and my smaller center container, which is the perfect space so that I can place in my lemons. Now I have cut my lemons to about a 1/4 inch slice. Dependent on the size of your containers, you could do thicker or thinner, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that they can fit in nicely and still be tight enough that they will be able to stand up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna set my lemon slices right inside of my container. It's gonna be like playing Connect 4, only everybody's a winner. So I'm gonna make my first layer down at the beginning, at the base. Just put my lemons inside. And you want them to be tight, like right next to each other. So just kind of jam them in there. Get them as close as you can to each other without overlapping. So once your first lemons are down, what you're gonna wanna do is on your next layer, you're gonna wanna put it right in between, right in that dip. So it's kind of like you're stacking bricks. So just keep continuing to put those lemons in, stacking those lemons up until your entire container is filled with the lemon slices. Okay, now all of my lemon slices are stacked. I'm gonna turn it around for you so you can see how nicely they look. I ended up using 3 lemons, and again, that will vary dependent on how large or small your container is on how many lemons you're gonna need. So now I'm going to add some water to my large mason jar in the center. And then in the center of this, I'm going to use some magnolia leaves and flowers. I have a magnolia tree in my yard, and right now they are blooming. They are so beautiful. And so I knew that this was going to be a perfect choice for my centerpiece. I have seen some arrangements with hydrangeas in there with a bunch of different varying colors that look so pretty as well. So just pick a flower that fits in with your decor and with your style. So I'm choosing to put them inside. I'm just gonna add them in. Oh, they smell so lovely, so beautiful. And because they have leaves that are kind of hanging down, it blocks the front portion of the lip of my container, so you can't really see that there's another container inside, and it's just gonna look so beautiful. This arrangement was so easy to make and so affordable. The only thing that I had to purchase were the lemons. I had everything else, and it's going to fit in perfectly with my home decor or be a showstopper as a centerpiece. My next project is a look for less. I I found my inspiration piece on the Pottery Barn website. It was these wooden link objects. I just fell in love with them. However, I did not fall in love with the price. It was $99 and that was just too much for me to pay. So I decided I would make it myself. The first thing that I needed to do was find some wood that was similar to my inspiration piece. I found a cutting board at TJ Maxx that was similar in color. And I turned it over, and bonus, it was on clearance for only $6. I was so excited. So I brought it home and I measured it out, and I found that I could get 4 oval links off of this one cutting board. So I made a template. Here's my template. After I measured it, I got a piece of paper and I cut it to the size that I needed, and then I drew an oval. Now on my inspiration piece, their ovals were kind of misshaped a little bit and had some curved edges. So I did the same thing with mine. It's not even, as you can see. And when I drew it out, I kind of made some parts thicker and some parts a little bit thinner. I traced out my ovals with a white colored pencil. That way I could see it when I was cutting. The first thing that I did was I got my drill and I drilled access hole points into the center of the ovals. This way I could set my saw blade inside of that and it would be an access hole point. That way I wouldn't have to cut through the sides of the links. So I cut the circles out in the center first with my jigsaw, and then I cut the ovals themselves out. I kept doing that until all 4 of my links were cut out. After I had my oval links, I decided I needed to sand down the edges, so I got some sandpaper and I sanded it down till it was really smooth. The Pottery Barn ovals were linked together with some magic and some extra steps and some craftsmanship, I'm sure. But guess what? Rope's gonna work just fine for me. So I have this rope upstairs and I cut it into about 6-inch segments, and I'm going to take 2 of my links, put them together, wrap the rope around it, and then hot glue the edges together. I repeated this 3 times to link all 4 of my wooden ovals together. The final thing that I'm going to do to my links is I'm going to add some coconut oil to seal up the wood and to bring out the wood grain. Now I did these 3 links last night and I left this one for you guys to see the difference. So I just have plain old coconut oil. You can get this at the grocery store, pretty much anywhere. So I'm just gonna take, a little bit. I'm gonna put it on my paper towel, and then I'm just going to rub it along the surface of my link, all over the wood. Can you see? I don't know if you can see the difference. I'll try and zoom in a little bit, but it just makes it look so much richer and so much nicer. It really enhances the color of the wood, and it makes it so the wood grain is so much more visible. And it's a good way to seal up your wood too. These nautical links turned out beautifully, and the only money that I spent was $6 on that wooden cutting board. I had the rope and the hot glue and everything else. So that's a big savings from the $99 Pottery Barn look. Now, I really love the way that they look for summer. However, this is something that I could display all year long on a coffee table or on a shelf or in an office on a desk. Now, the container that I'm using for my flower arrangement is from Home Goods, and it was originally $19.99, but I got a screaming deal on it. You can see it had been marked down a couple of times, and I picked it up for $4.50. And it's a blank slate, so it's gonna go with so many different seasons and pieces of decor. So I'm going to do a semi-permanent treatment to this container. What I did was I got a fishing net at the Dollar Tree, and I got some double-sided tape. Now I took this double-sided tape and I put it along the length of my container, and I did it all around the perimeter. So I had strips of double-sided tape so I could then take my fishing net and begin to wrap it around. Now I started at the bottom and I took the net and I pressed it firmly onto the tape, and then I just coiled it around the container. Every time I got to a piece of double-sided tape, I just pressed it firmly against the tape and it held it so nicely in place. The double-sided tape is a great option to use instead of hot glue or other kinds of glue, because at the end of the season I can take this net off and use the space for another project or another piece of home decor. Once my container was covered in the netting, I got some floral foam and I pressed it inside, and then I got some reindeer moss and I spread that over the entire surface of the top. I got some floral pins and I pressed that over the top of the moss to keep everything in place. I purchased my hydrangeas from the Dollar Tree. I got this pretty coastal blue hydrangea and kind of a pear colored hydrangea, and they're gonna be perfect for my beachy feel. So what I did with my hydrangeas was I wanted to have them kind of mimic the container, just kind of low and round. And so I got some tin snips and I trimmed down the stems. On the green ones, which I'm starting with first, I cut those down to about an 8-inch stem, and then I placed one bunch on the left-hand side and one bunch on the right-hand side, and then I moved on to these pretty blue ones and I trimmed those as well. These were more like a 10-inch stem, and then I put the hydrangeas in the front and in the back, so that way I have a lovely, as you can see, I kind of turn it and you get the pretty flowers all the way around. So after my hydrangeas were in place, I wanted to add some leaves. I got these stems of greenery at Michael's, and it's just another bit of color that you could add to it and interest. So I just placed those in some vacant spots. And then the final piece was to add these shells. Look how cute those are. So what I did was I just got some wooden skewers and I cut them in half. And because my shells were curled, I just took that wooden skewer and I just pressed it right inside the little hole, and it held it really snugly in place. I didn't add hot glue to mine. However, if you were concerned about the stability of it, you could add a little bit of hot glue to the end of your wooden skewer before you put the stick inside the shell. And then I took my shells and I just put them in random spots around my arrangement to give it that final little bit of a summertime vibe. The next project is going to start off with a Dollar Tree sign. The reason why I like this sign was because of the greenery around the edges. It reminded me of lemon leaves. And while the saying is very lovely, we are going to cover it up with some pale yellow scrapbook paper. I got a measuring tool out and I measured a 4 by 8 inch piece. I traced it out and then I cut it out with my scissors. To place my scrapbook paper onto my sign, I needed to first take up this wooden frame that was around it, which was fine because it had some gaps in the corners and I was a little ski-wampus, so it needed to be evened out. So I took it off using a razor blade. I carefully put that razor blade right underneath the wood, and that way it came up without pulling up the paper. Once it was loosened up a little bit, I just grabbed it and pulled it right off. Then I put some hot glue on my scrapbook paper, placed it in the center of my rectangular sign. Then I got my wooden frame pieces and I got some hot glue and I placed them evenly onto my sign. I even got my ruler out for this to make sure that it was repositioned really evenly and straight. As the focal point to my sign, I'm going to place some lemon slices in the center. I got this citrus wooden sticker package at the Dollar Tree and I just pulled out the lemon slices, and what I did was I wanted to paint them. I got some paint at Michael's, some dark yellow paint, and I also got some white paint because I wanted to do a very subtle ombre effect with my lemon slices. So in order to get this ombre effect, I needed to add a decent amount of white paint to the yellow paint to get a pale yellow. I added a medium amount to the yellow paint to get a medium tone, and then just a little bit of white paint to the yellow paint to get a more saturated color. And then I got a fine paintbrush and I painted the rind of the lemon first, and then I did the lemon segments in the center. I continued to paint each one of my lemon slices until they were all finished, and then I let them completely dry, which was a few hours. After they were dry, I flipped them over and there was a sticker on the back, so I just took that sticker off and I replaced it with some hot glue, and then I hot glued those lemon slices in the center of my frame evenly apart from each other. For just a few dollars, I was able to make a custom sign that fits in so nicely with my lemon theme. The shell vase that I got was from Beal's and it was on clearance for $3.74, which is a great way to start off a project. I love a bargain. Inside of the opening of the vase shell, I'm going to place in some floral foam. I'm just gonna wedge it right in there so it's really tight and secure. To the top of the foam, I'm going to add some reindeer moss. I like to use moss over the foam because if you do see through the succulents or whatever flower you happen to be working with, I personally like to look at moss as opposed to the foam. So I am going to be putting reindeer moss over the top, and I'm going to be securing the moss to the foam using floral pins. The succulents that I'm using for this arrangement are from the Dollar Tree. They had such a nice variety of sizes and shaped ones there, and you can't go wrong with spending $1 per succulent. So I started with the longest stemmed succulent first. I placed that at the top, and then with these other smaller ones, they came in a pot. And so what I did to get those out was I just kind of wiggled them a little bit and they just popped right out. And they had a bit of a stem, and so I just placed that stem right inside of the floral foam. And then I placed the smaller succulents running down the shell container. I used a total of 4 succulents, which was the perfect amount. This way, each succulent was close enough to each other but didn't overlap. And you could see each individual succulent. For a few dollars, I got this beautiful arrangement, this shell and all the succulents inside, and I think it was a great bargain. I got this captain's wheel frame at the Dollar Tree, and I immediately thought, that frame will look great inside of a frame. And so that's what we're gonna do today. It's almost like a shadow box. So the first thing that I did with this captain's wheel was I decided I wanted to stain it. So I used a Minwax walnut shade. I got a sponge brush and I brushed that stain over the top of the circle backing first. I placed the stain on it evenly, and then I got a paper towel and I wiped off the stain. I like to do that because I believe it brings out the wood grain a little bit better, and it makes sure that this stain is even throughout the entire surface of the wood that you're working with. That way one part isn't a little bit darker than the other, it's all cohesive. So I continue to put the stain on the captain's wheel, on the handles, and on the back side of everything. And then I wiped it off again with that paper towel, and then I let it dry for a few hours. I'm placing a compass inside of my captain's wheel. I found this compass online. It was a free printable, and I will leave a link to where I got it in my description box below. So I printed it off, and then I got the circular backer to the frame, placed that on top of my compass, and then I got a pencil and I traced around the circle. Then I got a pair of scissors, cut out my compass. To embellish my captain's wheel a little bit further, I'm going to add some gold lane cord to each of the handles. I got this lane cord at Michael's in the jewelry section. I got a dab of hot glue and I placed that on the back of the handle, put the end of the lane cord in the hot glue, and then I began to wrap it around the handle. I did it about 10 times, and then I cut it off, added another dab of hot glue, and I pressed the lame cord into the glue, which secured everything together. And then I continued to do it to each one of the handles. And then I placed that compass inside of my captain's wheel and placed the backer on the back. Now that my captain's wheel is finished, I'm going to place it into a larger frame that again is from the Dollar Tree. But before I do that, I'm going to place some scrapbook paper behind as a backer. I love this scrapbook paper. It's the perfect selection for this piece. It looks like water, and I just love the sparkles that it has on it. It adds some extra dimension. What I did was I took the mat out of the frame. I placed it on top of my scrapbook paper. I got a pencil and I traced around it, and then I cut it out. Then I got my captain's wheel. I added some hot glue to the back of the captain's wheel and pressed it firmly into the center of the scrapbook paper. Now that everything is glued together and finished, I can put it all back into the frame. I love the way that this turned out. It looks like an expensive piece from a department store. And the only money that I spent was $1 on the captain's wheel. I had everything else. So for $1, I am a happy camper. We are going to make a beautiful nautical centerpiece. I'm going to start off by using this glass container. It's rectangular and I got it a few years ago at Home Goods and it was $6.99. Inside of my glass container, I'm going to add about 2 cups of sand to the bottom. Just lay down a nice bed of sand. Try and get it all in there. Okay. Just gonna shake it around. Get a nice smooth surface on the bottom. Okay, so I've got sand, and then I'm gonna add these shells. Again, these are the shells from the Dollar Tree. I really love using them. They've got such a wide variety of sizes, shaped and colored on these shells. So they're gonna be so pretty on top of the sand. Again, I'm just gonna lay these out evenly until the entire surface of the bottom of my container is covered. Okay, to the back side of my vase, I'm going to add a palm frond. I got this from my yard. I live in Florida. I love living here. So this was easy for me just to get. However, if you don't have access to a fresh palm frond, you can just get an artificial one at Michael's or any place that florals are found. So I'm just gonna place that in the back, and then I'm gonna add in some water. I'm gonna do it really slowly because I don't want to upset the sand and move the shells around. So I'm just gonna start off really slowly at the first, and then I can add it in a little bit quicker. I'm gonna fill this up until it's about 2/3 of the way filled. And also, as time goes on, the sand that we kind of broke up, that is kind of floating around in the water, it will settle. And then to the top of this, I'm just gonna put in some floating candles. And that's it. To have my shells lay flat and face the front, I'm going to drill 2 holes into my shell. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the first time I did this, I assumed that these shells were gonna crack and splinter and break apart, but they didn't do it. And then let me show you how I did it that made it so they stayed intact. I got my drill and I'm using a really small drill bit. And I'm going to drill in really slowly at the beginning. So I'm just gonna place it on my shell. I'm gonna start drilling slowly. Don't floor it at the beginning, just slowly ease into it. And that's how you do it. So you can see that I have my hole and it didn't crack. And now I'm going to do another hole on the other side. about maybe ½ an inch apart. Again, I'm gonna start off really slowly. Okay. And now I have my 2 holes on my shells. So I'm just gonna repeat this process with the rest of the shells, and then I will be able to hang these on my garland. I'm going to string my shells on some cotton twine that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm also going to be using some pearls. Look at these cute little pearl beads. Of course, if you have shells, you've got to have pearls to go along with the shells, right? So I started out by putting the bead on first, bead then shell, bead then shell. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it through the back side of the shell first, and then I'll put it right back through to the front side, and then I'll just pull it. As you can see, I already did a few. And then next I'm gonna do my bead, and then I'm gonna do one more shell. Again, I'm starting from the back side, and then I'll thread it through the front side. And then I'm going to finish off with one last pearl. Okay, now that everything's on, look at that, look how cute. You can make these as big or as short or as small as you wanted. This is about right for what I need. And then I am going to just tie a knot at the end. And then I'm gonna be left with about a foot of excess twine on the end. So I've got about this much, it's about a foot. That way I can tie it onto, in this case, I'm gonna be tying it onto the capping spool. And then on this side, I'll do the same. I'm just gonna cut this twine about a foot, and I will make that knot. And now our garland is finished. We're gonna start off decorating with a blank table, and I have these boxes because I want extra height and dimension on my table. So before I put my tablecloth on, I'm gonna put these boxes where I know that I want extra height. The variation in heights gives your table interest and dimension. It's important to add the boxes first so you don't have to backtrack after the tablecloth is already in place. We're gonna start off by placing a neutral tablecloth down, and then we're gonna top it off with this fishing net that I got at Hobby Lobby, and it will set the scene perfectly. I love the way that my spring lanterns turned out, so I'm using lanterns again. These galvanized lanterns are perfect for my summer decor. I've added some driftwood and shell garland, and then on top I put some ribbons in sandy tans and coastal blues, and then in the center I have these shells, and I think it looks fantastic. I found this driftwood and shell garland at Ross for $7.99. I cut the garland into 2 segments, one for each lantern, and draped a piece across the top of each lantern. Next, I created my bows by looping, pinching, and twisting my wired white and tan chevron ribbon into large bows. I wrapped a piece of floral wire in the center of my loops, flipped the bow over, and twisted the wires together to secure. I repeated the process of looping, twisting, and attaching with another coastal colored ribbon as well. To reinforce the beachy theme, I hot glued the back of several different sized and colored shells and placed them in the center of my ribbon to create a custom and unique focal point. This seaside-inspired bow topper transformed a plain lantern into a stunning coastal chic themed piece of decor, ready to be put on display for all to enjoy. I wanted to put sand in the bottom of my lanterns, but I foresaw that being a mess. So an alternative option is these bath salts. I got these at the Dollar Tree. They are French lavender and citrus. So not only will my decor look good, it will smell good too. I scattered my sandy beach-inspired bath salts along the bottom of my lantern and then evened it out into a smooth, level layer. I'm going to put these flicker flame candles inside, and they're on a timer so they'll come on automatically every night. And then I'm also going to add some shells. The candles provide a soft glow that gives our table warmth and ambiance, and the added light illuminates the shelves below. Do you want a piece of seasonal decor but you don't have one? That's no problem. By adding extra details to a plain piece of decor you already own, you can transform your original decor into a custom piece of summer decor. I found these glass orbs covered in fish netting at Ross for $6.99. I saw some similar ones on the Pottery Barn website for $29.50 a piece, so I feel like I got a great deal. And I haven't seen them very much, so I feel like it's a unique piece. And they're classy and elegant with the glass, and they'll fit in perfectly with my coastal decor. I'm placing my glass orbs in the center of my table and staggering the heights. I'm placing one higher by setting it on top of a nautical themed box. The next piece I'm going to add to my tabletop decor is this captain's wheel. I got it from Hobby Lobby and it's the perfect color. It's neutral and it'll fit in nicely with my neutral tablescape. It's also a larger piece, so it'll add extra height to the back. Placing the captain's wheel in the back gives extra height without blocking any decor pieces. It also adds another whimsical seaside touch to my tablescape. I knew I wanted a statement piece, something that would really stand out and that I could use for years to come. So I decided to make a gold string art anchor. To create my anchor, I have a large wooden plank, gold jewelry cord, 1 1/4 inch finishing nails, and paper to trace out my anchor shape. After creating and cutting out my anchor template, I placed it in the center of my plank for a guide. I used a ruler to mark where I wanted to place my nails. I placed them every 1/4 inch. I hammered the nails into my board around the entire perimeter of my anchor. When all of my nails were in place, I removed the paper template by simply pulling it off. Now it's time to weave our gold cord back and forth along the anchor. There is no set pattern for the cord, just thread it along the entire anchor in a random pattern until it's as dense and full as you want it to be. I weaved this nautical rope through the gaps in the nails, just throughout the entire length of the board. And I got the rope from the Dollar Tree. And then I also added some shells and some driftwood and a little starfish. I just slid the rope through the nails at random places along my anchor. For added detail, I hot glued some extra seaside touches, like shells, driftwood, and a starfish. I will say that this took me a long time to do. Between hammering in all of the nails and weaving the thread, it took me a couple of hours. So if you have a lazy summer afternoon with nothing to do, this is a great project for you. The finished piece is definitely the center point of my tablescape. Creating this string art anchor was easy, affordable, and it's the perfect piece of coastal decor. Our final nautical touch is to scatter a few little shells throughout the table. Summer is such a bright, sunny time of year, a time to relax, enjoy, and head to the beach. I love that this coastal tablescape is a daily reminder of great times that we've spent along the seaside and exciting times to come. Another option for a lemon-themed centerpiece is this display. I got this container at Home Goods. It was on sale for $10 and I loved the pale yellow color on it. I also love the size and the scalloped edges. I thought they were so pretty. In the center of my container, I've added in some floral foam and I made a dome shape out of the foam. That way when I add my lemons, they kind of rise up a little bit and you'll be able to see each individual lemon. To the surface of my foam, I'm going to add some reindeer moss. Again, this is from the Dollar Tree. I use this almost in every single arrangement that I make. I would rather see some moss peeking out through my lemons or flowers or whatever it is, as opposed to seeing the foam. So what I'm gonna do with this moss is I'm just going to cover the surface of my foam. Just gonna put it on all around, and then to attach the foam and the moss together, I'm gonna use some floral pins. You can buy floral pins where almost any florals are found. I get them at Hobby Lobby. I've also purchased them at Michael's. This will keep the foam in place and stuck to the moss as well. Everything will be nicely secured together. Now that my foam is covered with the moss, I'm going to add some greenery. I got this greenery at Michael's, and I'm gonna add it in 2 stages. I'm gonna put a few in right now, and then I'm gonna put a few in after the lemons go on. That way I have some greenery that's under the lemons, and then I have some greenery that's over the top of the lemons. So I'll just add a couple of, probably 3, and then I'm gonna add my lemons in. Now, I got these lemons at Ross. I have seen them at Michael's. I've even seen some at the Dollar Tree, or you could use some fresh lemons. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna evenly place these throughout my container. And again, because we have that dome in the middle, we'll be able to see them really easily as they kind of climb up the foam. So here we go. It looked pretty good, pretty even. And then I've got these gaps in between the lemons, as you see. And that's where the second wave of these greenery pieces are gonna come in. So I'm just gonna turn it. I can add some greenery pieces just all over. Just stick it in. And because we have the foam in there, the greenery will go in there really easily. Okay, now we've got our greenery inside. And the last bit that we're going to add are some chalkboard signs. I got these cute chalkboard picks at Michael's, and I wrote easy peasy lemon squeezy because that's how easy this arrangement was. It was easy peasy lemon squeezy, so I'm just gonna poke those right in. I've added some ribbons in some pale yellow and chevron, and look how cute this arrangement. And again, it was so easy and really affordable to make. You could use any container, again, fresh or artificial lemons, and just a little bit of greenery, and you've got a beautiful arrangement for summer. Next, I'm creating a seating area. Having a bench or chairs really encourages your guests to sit down, relax, and enjoy those warm summer nights. To add style and warmth, I'm draping a neutral colored blanket to soften the hard lines of my bench, and adding 2 beachy coastal colored pillows. I added this cozy knitted blanket and these pillows covered in outdoor fabric. Now I suggest buying items that are covered in outdoor fabric because the fabric will last longer because it's specifically made to be used outside. The summer theme that I'm using this year is a beach and coastal style theme. So to add to that, I'm going to put these wreaths on my front door so that my coastal theme is introduced before you even enter my house. Let's dress up our front door with a pair of easy DIY wreaths. I got these metal wreath forms at the Dollar Tree. I knew some of the metal was going to show through and green just wasn't in my color scheme, so I decided to paint them gold. I used spray paint to thoroughly cover both the front and the back of my forms. This sisal rope is from Walmart, and I got 50 feet for only $5.44. To attach my rope to my form, I put a line of hot glue along my metal form and placed the rope on top. I continued gluing the rope around my form until it was completely covered. I wrapped my rope loosely and left a few gaps because I knew I needed the gaps to attach my embellishments. For extra detail, I'm adding Dollar Tree twine in 3 places along my wreath. I just wrapped the twine around the wreath and tied it in the back. To create my bows, I'm using navy blue polka dot and white chevron ribbons. I just looped, twisted, and then looped the ribbons together to form my bows, and then wrapped a piece of floral wire around it to secure. I placed the bows together and wrapped the wire around them both to tie them together. To attach the bows to my wreath, I threaded the floral wire through the gaps in my wreath and twisted the wires together to secure them to the wreath. Now it's time to add some beachy elements, like these shells from the Dollar Tree. I simply hot glued several shells onto the center of my ribbons, which immediately added that coastal beachy vibe. The final few elements are adding a sprig of summer greenery, which I just poked through a gap in my wreath, and a chalkboard sign with a written beach-themed message. I'm using command hooks. I prefer these over the door hangers because once you put these on, they'll stay in place. Your friends won't doubt their welcome here when they're greeted by these wreaths. I purchased these lanterns at Target, and inside, instead of just using a candle, I decided to add some flowers. I also put some of this fabric, the coordinating fabric, on top. You could also use a potted plant, or you could add some more candles, or you could add some decor that fits in with your theme. Adding flowers inside this pair of lanterns is a cute, unique way to display your flowers and an alternative to just using candles. I planted some flowers and some greenery inside of this urn, and to add another whimsical touch, I thought I would add this seahorse. So what I did was I bought this metal wreath holder and I placed it inside, and all I have to do is put this right on top of the hook. This seahorse fits in perfectly with my color scheme and beach theme. A windmill, a beach sign, or a wind chime could be great alternative options as well. The final touch is this welcome sign. I got this sign at Hobby Lobby, and I love using chalkboard signs because you can customize them to any decor, party, or holiday, and all you have to do is write out your message. I wrote my home sweet home sign using chalk pens. The pens help you get crisp, clean lines. I also added a coordinating piece of fabric to tie my decor together. When the weather gets warmer and the sun shines brighter, you know outdoor living is on the horizon. It's fun to celebrate this fresh new summer season by adding decor outside. So make your front porch shine as brightly outside as it does inside. I wanted a statement piece of decor on my Independence Day table, so I decided to do an American flag. Now, the inspiration to doing this flag was when I saw these stars at the Dollar Tree. I thought they were so cute, and I knew that they would be the perfect piece to make this unique and special. To create this flag, you'll need a piece of wood. Mine is 24 inches wide by 12 inches tall, 2 strings of Dollar Tree starlights, and red, white, and blue craft paint. I measured and evenly spaced out 20 holes in the upper left-hand corner for my stars. With a 1/4-inch drill bit, I drilled holes large enough so my lights would fit completely through. I sanded down any rough areas so that the surface was nice and smooth, and then I wiped the wood down with a damp cloth so I'd have a clean surface for better paint adhesion. I used painter's tape to evenly section off my stripes. With a sponge brush, I painted on 2 coats of red paint so I would have a deep saturated color. I also painted on 2 coats of the navy blue paint as well. I let the paint dry for 2 hours before removing the tape. As you can see, by using the painter's tape, you get a nice, crisp edge. I taped over my completely dry red stripes so I could paint on my white stripe. Again, I painted on 2 coats of paint so I could get a bright white stripe. I let it dry for 2 hours and then removed the tape to reveal sharp, clean lines. Once the paint is completely dry, it's time to add the lights. I simply poked my lights completely through the hole and pulled it through. Now these stars just pop on and off of the lights. That way you can easily put them in through the hole that you drilled. And you could just leave them off, but I like the stars on it because we have stars and stripes on our flag. Once you're finished placing the lights through the holes, just snap the stars back on. The stars will also help prevent the lights from sliding out through the back. Next, I used the same painter's tape to secure my battery pack to the back side of the flag. On this 4th of July, celebrate with some light up stars and bright colorful stripes. With this easy and inexpensive flag, this festive focal point is a great way to add a touch of patriotism into your decor. I'm going to add these blue lanterns. I'm going to spruce them up a little bit with some red, white, and blue chevron striped ribbons. And then inside I have some candles. And what I did was I put them on top of some tin cans. And then I wrapped some twine around the tin cans to give them a little more festive feel. The addition of this galvanized can and burlap ribbon topper give this lantern an Americana vibe, ideal for this patriotic holiday. These mason jars and tin cans I already had. I love repurposing household items into seasonal decor. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some food in these, and then I'm gonna use these tin cans as vases and then as risers, as you've already seen, to put my candles on top of. Next time you have an empty can, don't throw it out. Just remove the label, give it a good wash, and create a rustic vase. To make these patriotic marshmallows, I found some red, white, and blue straws at the Dollar Tree. And all I did was I poked them into some large marshmallows, I dipped them into some white Wilton melting chocolates, and then I sprinkled some red sanding sugar over the top. I decorated these pretzel rods to look like little flags. The first thing I did was I dipped the top into some white coating chocolate. I let it set for 30 minutes, and then I dipped it again in some blue coating chocolates. And after that was set, I flicked some little red stripes over the top, and I added some sanding sugar to the top to look like little stars on my flag. These were a cinch to make, but look impressive. The red, white, and blue colored melting chocolates help reinforce my holiday theme. I got these plastic goblets at the Dollar Tree, and all I did was I filled them up with some strawberry jello, topped them off with some Cool Whip, and then added a little bit of blue sanding sugar to the top. In place of jello, you could do a yogurt parfait, fruit cup, or strawberry pound cake trifle. Any 4th of July colored food or dessert would be a perfect addition. I can't think of an easier way to bring in that patriotic feeling than just by cutting out a few pieces of watermelon. What I did was I used my star cookie cutter and I cut out some star shapes. And then I placed a wooden skewer through the center. And then to prevent that icky, sticky juice from running down your arm, I'm going to use these cupcake liners. I'm just going to poke my skewer right through the center and then pull it up. And then I have a little bit of a shield. These watermelon stars are a great handheld snack on the go, especially with the addition of the cupcake liner juice drip protector. Make your 4th of July decor pop with simple, easy, and inexpensive touches to provide a patriotic spirit. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this 30-inch 3-tiered tray out of items that I just had in my craft stash. Nothing that I used to make this has been newly purchased. So the tiers that I have right here on my tray are made out of pizza pans, and the top tray is made out of a garden container, and all the items that I got were from the Dollar Tree. For this center pole in the middle, I am using a stair spindle that was left over from a project that I did a few months back. I made a breakfast in bed tray, and I just cut off the decorative pieces that I used for legs on my breakfast in bed tray. And so I had this leftover piece of spindle that was just straight and tapered, and I thought it would be great to be the center point to my tiered tray. In order to attach everything together, I'm going to need to drill some holes to make access points in each of my metal pieces. So I got my drill and a measuring tape and a pencil, and I measured the center of each of my pieces. I made a mark where the center was, and then I got my drill and I drilled a hole right where the mark was in the center. Then I repeated the process on my second pizza pan tray. For my floral container, I flipped it upside down, measured the base, found the center, made a mark, and then drilled a hole completely through. Since my stair spindle was already white, I decided to paint the metal pieces white as well, so everything would be cohesive. I got some white chalk spray paint, and I took my pieces outside and I gave them a coat of white chalk spray paint. I began painting them upside down first. I painted the spray paint on each piece until it was completely covered and no metal was showing. I let my plates and my container dry for about 1 hour before flipping them over and painting the front side. Again, I painted the pieces thoroughly until the entire piece was completely saturated in paint. And then I let my pieces dry for about 1 hour. To give my painted pieces a rustic farmhouse look, I decided to sand down the edges. So I got a piece of light grit sandpaper and I sanded the edge of my pizza trays and my container. I did it lightly. This way it didn't take off too much of the paint, but I still got that weathered look that I was going for. For the feet of my tray, I'm using some wooden blocks that my twin boys have outgrown and they don't play with them anymore, so now it's my turn to play with the blocks. So again, I took these outside and I gave them a coat of paint to make sure that the entire thing was saturated, and having these white go along with all the other white pieces so everything is cohesive. Now I needed 3 separate segments from my wooden spindle. I decided to do the bottom piece as a 10-inch segment, the middle as a 9-inch segment, and a 7-inch segment for the top. I got a measuring tape and a pencil, and I measured out the sizes that I needed, and I marked it off. And then I took my wooden spindle outside and I got my jigsaw and I cut the pieces to the correct size. I just cut right along that pencil line to get my 3 segments. Now, if you don't have a jigsaw, you could use a handsaw or a hacksaw, and that would work as well. My spindles also needed to have some access points to them, so I got my drill out again. I lined up the drill bit to the center of the spindle and drilled a hole deep enough to accommodate the screws. Now that everything is cut, drilled, and painted, it's time to assemble our tray. I'm going to use 3 screws to assemble everything together. I'll need 1 wood screw and 2 dowel screws. Now, the first base layer is going to be put together with that wood screw. I'm going to take that wood screw and I'm going to screw it through the center of my pizza tray directly into the hole that's at the base of my wooden dowel. I'll screw it together and I'll do it really tightly until it's firmly attached. For the middle tray, I'm going to use a dowel screw. This is the screw that has the threads on either end, and I was wondering, how am I going to get that into this particular wooden dowel? So I thought, maybe if I take the drill bit out and put that screw into it, that maybe I could screw it in that way, and guess what? It totally worked. So I put it in there, I screwed it down into the center about halfway, and that way there was still about half of the screw that was poking up. I placed my second pizza tray right on top, and then I took my 9-inch segment and I twisted it onto the screw that was poking up. I did it until it was really firmly screwed in and everything was nice and snug and stable. I repeated the process with the second dowel screw on my third 7-inch segment of wooden spindle. I lined up the screw with the hole in the bottom of my floral container, and I pressed that floral container through the screw, and then I took that 7-inch segment of wooden dowel and I twisted it onto the screw that was poking up through the top of the center of the floral container until it was really snug and securely in place. I was completely out of ideas of what I could use as a decorative topper for my tray until I remembered that I had a box upstairs of some leftover dowels and tie backs and some curtain rod ends, and I looked through it and I found this sparkly little gem. Look how pretty that is. And I knew that this would be perfect at the top of my tier tray. And since the wooden spindle already had a hole in the top, it would be perfect for this, because this decorative end has a screw at the end and I could just twist it right in, which is what I did. I twisted it on until it was really snug, and I really think that this piece elevates the entire look of the tiered tray. The final step is to add those wooden block feet. So I got some hot glue and I put a dab of hot glue onto the bottom of the tray, and I spaced my 3 blocks out equally at the base to keep the tray even and sturdy. And now my tray is complete and ready to be styled. Now I went with a beach theme for 2 reasons. Number 1, because I love the beach. Who doesn't love the beach? It's so calming and serene. And then number 2, because it's what I had on hand. So I had all these beach materials and seashells and everything, and so I knew that they would be a great addition to my tiered tray. I have a wooden box that reminds me of a treasure chest. I have some beautiful turquoise ribbons and some tan ribbons that remind me of the ocean and the beach. I have some shells, of course, you gotta have a whole bunch of shells, and I have some succulents that I put around in various places, and I also have a garland of some driftwood that I got at Ross last year, so I put those in some different places, and then I put a Seize the Day sign on there. Now, I just printed this sign off on my computer, I cut it out, and I placed it inside of the frame. I love this message of Seize the Day because right now we have a lot of things going on in the world, but each day is a blessing, and I think it's really important that we appreciate each day and really make the most of it. I was able to create this 30-inch, 3-tiered, stylish tray with things that I had upstairs in my craft stash. We have a lot of extra time right now on our hands, and I think that if you just rummage through what you have at home, go through your craft stash, pull some things out, and get creative, because you all have the potential to make something amazing. I'll be showing you how to make these pocket placemats so you can place in your silverware and your napkins in one tight roll. I'll also be sharing how to assemble a prosciutto, mozzarella, and pesto sandwich, along with some other picnic ideas. When the temperature feels just right, it's time to spread out the gingham blanket and head to the closest bit of outdoor space available. There are so many ways to throw a picture-perfect picnic. You can include a beautiful location, a comfy blanket, and of course, delicious food. We're going to be making one of my all-time favorite sandwiches. We're going to make a prosciutto and mozzarella sandwich. We are going to start with some ciabatta bread. I got this from a local bakery. We've got some jarred pesto. It's easier just to buy the pesto instead of making it yourself. I have some baby spinach, some Roma tomato slices, some mozzarella, and of course I have my prosciutto. Summertime has such a large variety of fruits and vegetables in season, which provides a great opportunity for you to create your own unique and delicious sandwich. This ciabatta bread is perfect to put my pesto on because once I do, it'll just kind of seep into all these little nooks and crannies. Another thing about this sandwich is that you can eat it hot or cold. You could add the prosciutto and the mozzarella and the pesto and then warm it up in the oven. Get that cheese all nice and melty, and then add the tomatoes and the baby spinach after. I'm fully coating one side of my ciabatta roll in this delicious basil and garlic pesto. On top of the pesto, I'm adding several slices of mozzarella cheese. Next, I'll pile on the prosciutto. You could substitute this meat for your favorite deli meat, ham, salami, pastrami, or leave the meat off entirely and go vegetarian. On top of my prosciutto, I'm adding a few juicy slices of Roma tomatoes, and then the sandwich gets topped off with a heaping helping of baby spinach. I'm going to cut my sandwiches in half, and then to add a little pizzazz, I'm going to take some parchment paper, and I'm going to wrap them in the parchment paper, and then I'll tie them together with twine. Wrapping the sandwiches not only keeps the sandwiches together, it also helps keep your hands nice and clean while you're eating outdoors. We're going to start out with a basket. I have this heart-shaped wicker basket, and inside it's lined with fabric, and then it's secured to the edges with these ribbons. You can get so creative with your containers. You can use baskets like these, you can use crates, you can use bags, you can leave them lined with fabric or unlined, anything would work. Mason jars are perfect for picnics. You can add so many things to them. I've got watermelon in mine. You can add other fruits, other veggies, a salad, and they're perfect because it's an enclosed container with a lid, so you won't have to worry about spilling. Now it's time to pack up our basket. We're going to start off with our watermelon. We've got some strawberries and some cookies for dessert. We have our prosciutto sandwiches, and we have some black cherry soda. You don't need an expensive or elaborate spread to have a great picnic. So just pick a few of your favorite foods that won't break the bank, get out your picnic basket, load it up, and enjoy an afternoon of outdoor fun. Now that our food is all packed up, let me show you how I made these pocket placemats. To make these pocket placemats, you'll need a material placemat, a coordinating napkin or fabric, and ribbon. I folded my napkin in half, so when I cut it out, I would get two equally sized 5-inch tall by 6-inch wide squares of fabric. I folded in and pinned a 1/4 inch of fabric on 3 sides of my square. This helps to prevent the fabric from fraying when it's being sewed. Then I pinned the square to the bottom right-hand side of my placemat. I sewed a straight line down 3 of my edges, leaving the top open for my silverware. After the pocket has been sewed on, I divided my pocket into 3 even rectangles. I simply sewed straight lines along the entire length of the pocket to create 3 distinct and individual pockets. You don't need a sewing machine. You could attach the pockets with a needle and thread, or you could make one large pocket using fabric glue. I'm adding a coordinating ribbon that when tied will keep my placemat in a tight roll. My placemat was 12 inches tall, so I placed my ribbon halfway at the 6-inch mark and sewed it onto my placemat. This project was a cinch to create, very affordable, and it's a convenient way to display and hold your silverware. This colorful placemat will add a fun and unique touch to your picnic. Once we put our cutlery and our napkin in our pocket, all you have to do is just wrap it up into a tight roll. And then we'll tie it at the end with the ribbons. And then, because they are tight and small, they'll fit perfectly into our basket and won't take up too much space. Choosing the right picnic blanket is important. You want to be comfortable, but also have a stylish backdrop for your food. Adding things like baskets, a pillow, blanket, a hat, and some flowers can really help elevate the style of your picnic. Rolling out an individual placemat can create a unique experience for your guests. Each place setting feels like a thoughtful touch. I'm using these disposable plates. These have a silver rim around the edge and it really makes it feel really elegant. And if they get dropped or cracked, it's not a problem because they're disposable. Using convenient and practical dishware doesn't mean you can't still achieve an elegant and classy spread. A picnic is a relaxed way to approach outdoor dining and entertaining. You can have a picnic at the park, the beach, or in your own backyard. Pack a lunch that highlights the delicious seasonal fruits that summer has to offer, or just pick your own favorite lunchtime food. Bask in the sun's rays and enjoy the beauty of the outdoors. Share an afternoon of enjoyment with those you love. These roasting sticks will be a fun, one-of-a-kind addition to your next s'mores party, so let me show you how I made them. I got two 3-foot long by 5/8 inch wooden dowels from Michael's, and what I did was I took my power tool jigsaw and I cut it into 3 1-foot segments. I measured out 1-foot segments and taped off the areas where I was going to cut with painter's tape, which helps prevent splintering. With a Sharpie, I marked lines around my dowel so I would have a guide to follow when I was sawing. I cut along the line with my jigsaw to create my segments. Don't worry, the camera was zoomed in and everyone was a safe distance away from the blade. Next, I got out my drill and I drilled a hole into the center of each one of my wooden dowels. With my Sharpie, I made a mark in the center of my dowel so I had a center point reference. With a 5/8 inch drill bit, I drilled a hole in the dowel and went down about 3/4 of the length of the drill bit. Now the handle of the roasting stick is prepped and ready for the skewer. I got these fork skewers at Walmart. They were in the camping section and they came in a set of 4 for only $1.88. Some alternative options to use instead of these fork skewers could be kebab skewers or pieces of thick gauged metal. These skewers are pretty short and I want my kids to be as far away from the fire as possible. So adding extra length to the end and a non-heat conducting handle was an essential measure that will give this mama a little more peace of mind. The handles on the end of these skewers are too wide to fit inside my wooden dowel. So what I did was I took my jigsaw, since this is a power tool challenge, and I cut it in half. Now, if you don't have a jigsaw, you could use some needle nose pliers and just push them together to thin them out. I used a metal cutting blade to cut through the center of the handle. Now these skewers will fit inside the wooden dowel. After I put my skewers into the wooden dowel, I used E6000 to glue it together. This is a great glue, it's really sturdy. If you don't have this, you could use some super glue or some liquid nails. Either one of those would work. You can purchase E6000 at most craft and hardware stores. I put a dab of glue in the bottom of the wooden dowel first and then inserted the metal skewer. I pushed it in firmly until the skewer was pressed up against the back of the hole. I added extra E6000 until the skewer was completely encased in glue. Then I let the glue dry for several hours. Now it's time to add a little pizzazz to the handle of our skewer. What I used is this white copper metallic spray paint. It actually looks like rose gold. And then with the alternating stripe, I'm going to use this white craft paint. I evenly taped off my stripe design with painter's tape and then sprayed the white copper paint thoroughly on the top side of the wooden handle. After 1 hour of dry time, I flipped the skewers over and painted the other side. Then I placed them in a bucket so they could dry evenly and so the paint wouldn't smudge. After I spray painted on the white copper paint, I let it dry for about 2 hours before removing the tape. Then I taped back over the top of the white copper paint and then I painted this exposed area white. Letting the paint dry completely before removing the tape helps your lines remain sharp and crisp and cuts down on the paint seeping through. After taping over the dried copper paint, I used a sponge brush to paint the white craft paint on the exposed area. Then I let it dry overnight before removing the tape. In order to remember whose roasting stick is whose, I decided to put various cookout words on the handles. That way, each guest remembers which stick is theirs. Ooey gooey, yummy, toasty, roasty, and s'mores are the words I chose for my skewers. First, I traced the word out with a pencil, and then I went back over it with a Sharpie permanent marker. You could also label them with names or paint them in various shades of your favorite color. I decided to do my own s'mores station. What I added was a variety of chocolates. I have regular milk chocolate, peanut butter cups, and some cookies and cream chocolates. I also have a variety of cookies. I've got the regular graham crackers, I have some shortbread striped cookies, and I also have some fudge covered graham crackers. Have fun creating your own s'mores station. Pick your favorite cookies and chocolate bars, add toffee bits, caramel sauce, or Nutella. You could even create a s'mores menu, showing different ways to combine cookies and toppings to make a unique flavored s'more. I decided to use just plain large marshmallows, but there is such a variety of flavors and shapes nowadays, you can really go wild. I assembled my own fire pit. I got these buffet warming canisters at the Dollar Tree, placed them in a divided box, and put some rocks around them to hold them in place and act as a heat buffer. I incorporated a chalkboard banner, and I also used a chalk marker to write a fun message that goes along with the theme of our party. So grab your DIY roasting stick and gather your friends and family for an evening of ooey gooey fun. Whether you're in the backyard hosting a s'mores party for the neighbors or enjoying a quiet evening with family, this sweet station is a perfect choice. So grab a cookie or two, a toasty marshmallow, and make the most out of time spent with loved ones. I hope I showed you everything you need to set up a s'mores bar your crowd will love. Next up is this shell topiary. I got the base to this topiary at the Dollar Tree, and it is a clay pot, and it came in a package of 2, and I took that clay pot and I filled it up with some floral foam. And then I got a grapevine ball. Now I'm using a grapevine ball for a few reasons. The first one is because I knew that there was going to be a few places on my topiary where you're going to be able to see through the shells, and I wanted it to be underneath kind of a little more organic as opposed to a styrofoam ball. And then another reason is because I could move the vines around a little bit to accommodate the driftwood that was going to be poking out and holding up the grapevine ball. So what I did is I took that piece of driftwood and I added some hot glue to it, to the top, and then I pressed it inside that little hole that I made in the grapevine ball, and I held it in place until it was dry. And then I took my topiary and I pressed it into my clay pot with the foam inside. And then I got some moss and I spread that over the surface of it. I got some floral pins to tack the moss down to the foam to hold it securely in place. And then I got my shells. These shells are from the Dollar Tree. They come in a package, and I think that for the price and for what you get, it's an amazing bargain. So those are the shells that I'm going to be using. I got some hot glue and I hot glued the edges of all of the shells, and then I took those shells and I placed them on top of my grapevine ball. I got some shells that were similar in size and similar in color so that my topiary would be really cohesive. So I just continued to hot glue the shells around the entire surface of the ball until it was completely covered. The final touch to our shell topiary is to add a little bit of this twine around the container. I'm just going to cut off a little bit. I got this twine at Michael's and it was $3.99, but it was on sale, of course, so that makes it a lot less expensive. So I'm just gonna tie it around my clay pot into a little bow. Try and do this upside down so you guys can see it. And that's just the last touch, and I think it just looks so beachy. Next up is this Nautical vase. It was a cinch to make. I started off with a vase that I got at the Dollar Tree, and then I'm using some rope that was left over from some wreaths that I made for the front door last summer. And I'm just using about a 4-foot long piece that was left over. I'm going to start off by adding a bit of hot glue to the end of the rope. I'm going to hot glue it directly onto the vase, and then I'm going to add a line of hot glue along the vase, and I'm going to press the rope into the hot glue. I'm going to continue to hot glue and add the rope into the hot glue around the entire vase. I'm going to hot glue and coil until I get to the end, and then I'm going to hot glue the end of the rope directly onto the vase. A few of my fantastic subscribers out there mentioned that I should get some of these finger protectors to use when I'm working with hot glue, and I found a set of 3 at the Dollar Tree. I used them for these projects and none of my fingers were harmed, so thank you so much, my sweet friends, for the tip. Inside of my vase, I'm going to add about a cup of sand to the center of it. And then I'm going to add my flicker flame candle. I'm just going to turn it on. I got a set of 5 of these from Amazon. They were really affordable. So I'm just going to nestle that right inside of that sand, just twist it right in. And then I'm going to put some more of these shells, and I'm going to place them so the shell side is out, and I'll just stick it right in between the candle and the front side of the vase. So I'll just do about 3 of those. Just pop those right down in. And then I could just leave it like this. It's beautiful like this, but I'm going to put it inside of my galvanized urn. So here's my urn, and I'll just pop this right inside. And then it really takes it from a standalone piece to a centerpiece and to a show-stopping idea for summer. You could make a whole bunch of these vases and line them up on your mantle or on your foyer table, or just cluster them together and make a centerpiece out of them. And the best part was the price. It was so affordable. The only money that I spent was to get the vase from the Dollar Tree. I am so excited to start decorating for summertime, and these 3 easy home decor DIY pieces are a great place to start. By using some items that I found at the Dollar Tree, a clearance score, and some things that I found around the house, I was able to make some really affordable, bright and cheery, summery pieces of home decor. I hope you got some inspiration or some ideas. I really appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much for watching.